Welcome to Data Science Perspectives. This series focuses on analytics and data science professionals from across industry to learn about how their career unfolded, what skills they look for when hiring, and what trends they think are coming next. I'm your host, Bill Franks. Let's get to it. Welcome to this episode of Data Science Perspectives. I'm your host, Bill Franks. We're going to wrap up this season of best of episodes with some discussion around career advice for students. We're going to hear from executives about why it's important for students to focus on getting a breadth of experience early. We're going to hear about the need to not just put in work on finding that first job, but then working hard once you get it. The need to learn the language of business and really hone those soft skills and communication skills. And that's a theme we've heard across multiple episodes this season. They'll talk about why you can't be afraid to try some new things and take some risks if you're going to get ahead in your career, because you always have to do what's right for you. And then, of course, keep in perspective that a career is a long game throughout. I've once again put the specific timings that various executives appear so you can jump to one if you'd like. And with that, let's get into the show. Joe DeCosmo, Chief Analytics and Technology Officer, Inova International.
Whenever I talk to students that are starting their careers, I always tell them that, don't trade, a little bit of salary and a title for skill. Really three things: skill development, new experiences, and network. The ability to make connections, early in your career as well. And that, you're much better focusing on those things in your first, say, 10 years than you are in focusing on salary and title. I tell my daughters that I have two daughters that are, out of college now. I advise them that. I advise, the students that are graduating those things as well. I'm not sure they always listen, but I think it's pretty important advice.
Linda Birch, founder and CEO, Birchworks. What would be the biggest piece of advice you'd give a fresh graduate, whether they're undergrad, master's, PhD, if they're going to look for their first job out in this space? What should they be thinking about?
Yeah. This may be your first job, but you need to keep learning. Technology is never going to stop changing and growing. I mean, back in the day, it was SaaS was the primary game in town, and everybody knew SaaS, and now it's Python. But what is it going to be 5 years from now? And so you cannot let your skills get rusty. You need to keep learning. As technology grows and changes, you need to grow and change with it. Otherwise, in 15 years, you will be, on the market without any marketable skills. So just because you're through with school, you cannot be through with learning.
Don Vu, Chief Data Officer, Northwestern Mutual. What would be a piece of advice or maybe two that you would give to folks that are either, finishing degrees now or recently finished degrees and on maybe their first job, second job at most, where they're still wondering what do they need to do if they want to get ahead and one day be CDO at a large company like yourself?
I'd say two things. One is, maybe I'll point directly to something that's really actionable, is I really gravitated towards Angela Duckworth's book, Grit. And I think the tagline is essentially effort counts twice. And you apply a ton of effort in actually learning a skill, and then you apply a ton of effort in actually leveraging that skill in whatever context, professionally or perhaps in some sort of craft that you have, whether it be sports or the arts or whatever. And I do think this notion of hard work and creating your own luck is a legitimate thing. I also think that notion of grit paired with the general desire to just try a lot of different things and put yourself out there, make yourself vulnerable, ask about that ask that person about that piece of advice you'd love to have, someone that you look up to. And I think those two combined, try tons of things. Don't be shy about, applying yourself and putting a lot of elbow grease into those things that really resonate with you. I think will get any individual there a long way. And, for so many folks, I guess two things. One, the path that most successful people have when they look back. It wasn't necessarily planned, but there was those serendipitous moments, those pieces of luck, which I would argue were created by, each person, by the way they put themselves in those positions. I think that's something that you can, kind of manifest yourself if you really apply yourself.
I like that too, because if you think about it, when you talk about effort, you talk about, grit, things along those lines. That's something that everybody has and can do if they put their mind to it. This isn't where, you have to have the deepest education, or you have to have the, the best SAT scores. It's something that people have within their control. And even someone who's not naturally the type that pushes themselves a lot, you can practice and you can get better. So I think that's actually really a really cool angle to play, because you've given something that I believe anybody listening could adopt.
Totally agree.
Craig Braybeck, Chief Data and Analytics Officer, McDonald's. Well, for the benefit of the students that might be listening, now that you've worked at multiple big companies, you're currently CEO at McDonald's, which has a fairly robust analytics organization and a well-known brand people might want to work for. What's one or two of the key things that you and your group are looking for if you're looking to hire somebody who's either brand new out of school or very close to it, maybe 1-2 years tenure, still fairly junior?
It's a great question, and mine might be a little bit different. The table stakes is you got to be intelligent, right? You got to have a good capability of show command of what you've learned, to the point that maybe you teach it or you actually show others how you do it. Having the knowledge and just being black box with data analytics is useful, but not as useful as somebody that can actually convey what they're doing in a more simpler fashion. So you got to be really smart as one, but you got to be able to translate and speak the language of the business. And often that comes through experience with presentations, or just some good internships with other companies. And maybe you're not doing the most advanced analytical work, but you're actually showing and demonstrating that capability to communicate in a highly effective manner with your partner. So intelligent and communicated, but also I'd say curious. You ask a lot of questions. You come prepared in the interviews, asking about the company. You've done homework and research in advance to understand that it's not just, hey, let me show you how I'm capable. I'm actually meeting you halfway, and I really want to lean in. So someone who's showing a lot of curiosity, both in the interview, but also in the choices that they've made and the type of work that they've done. And then the third is, and I take this one from a much esteemed colleague of mine, Paul Blue, is nice. We work in environments with people all the time, and we really want folks that are gravitating to working with other team members and really like to work in a broader team environment, working together. So smart, nice, and curious.
It's a good one. I'll pull one thread that you hinted at as well, which is, if a student were to come and say, boy, I'm not sure what I want to do, or I'm not getting a lot of luck on my resume, should I take a few more classes? I would say, instead of a few more classes, go do a few things, right? To your point, an internship, even if you do some hackathon, something where then you can come to that interview and say, I took these classes, but now here's where I've proven that I can apply it. And that's going to be far more than just having an extensive academic background of, this method, that method, because if you can't apply it, I just don't see a company wanting to hire you as much.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's a table stakes requirement, but what we're really looking for too, that differentiator, is, can you tell a story where you implemented it somewhere, or where you tried and it didn't work? Like you got resistance or feedback, or you were able to get that success by listening in a closer way. But we're really looking for you to tell those stories and those experiences too. And I think through, like you said, by going and seeing, going and doing is a great way to do that.
Melinda Barrero, Enterprise Analytics, Chick-fil-A. As students who are just about to begin their career, or very early in their career, what's one piece of advice that you would give them to think about as they ponder a career in the analytics and data science space?
Well, you're the advice person, Bill. I may just give some suggestions. So I think, and I still say this to myself, careers are long games, right? Now you have a lot of decisions to make along the trail, along the game or in the game. And there's actually no one size fits all career. So it has to be right for you. It has to, you need to make your own decisions. And just remember that it's like a creative process, right? You're developing your journey and your career. If you had asked me, even 10 years ago, if I would be thinking about chicken thawing and modeling for chicken thawing, that's real fascinating, by the way, Bill. I would have said, what? I don't even eat chicken, right? So I think, look at your it's a journey. Look at it as a series of decisions, and let yourself be open to opportunities. Like I consulted to Chick-fil-A before I came on board, and I fell in love with Chick-fil-A as a company, and I let myself be open when an opportunity came up. So that openness is important. Don't box yourself in. And I'm going to say I boxed myself in because after I got a PhD, I said, well, I got a PhD now, so I'm supposed to be a professor, right?
Right.
I didn't look at like not being a professor, like going into business or going into a non-academic thing, because I was like, well, everybody around me, they were professors. So that was the path. Now I'm glad I took that, but keep yourself open to alternative paths, not just what people around you are doing, even though I'm sure people around you are making great decisions for them. It has to be good for you and your family and for the stage you are in life.
I think that is some terrific advice, especially for young people, the idea of not getting pigeonholed, or worse, it's bad enough if other people pigeonhole you, but you pointed out you kind of pigeonholed yourself, and that, you want to be open. I think that's great advice. Kathy Kuntz, Principal Analytic Platform Strategy, Amazon Web Services.
Yeah, I've done some, I have a talk that I've done for data science students that are getting ready to graduate or early in their careers. And I say, it's the title of it, the skills that got you here won't get you there. And it really is about developing that ability to network, to influence people, to communicate in a way that is meaningful to the recipient. And those are really the skills that can differentiate somebody who does have that technical background, but is looking to have broader influence across an organization. And I think it's something that in our industry, we may not spend enough time coaching and practicing in, but it can really be a make or break for somebody in a technical role.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I think everyone pretty much agrees on that today too, right? Which I'm not sure that would have been true 20 years ago, but I think people like us all talk about this. But the funny thing is, I've been on both, client consulting side over the years, and now I'm at university side. And the reality is, well, everyone really talks about it. I don't think any individual companies, consulting firms, or universities are really doing any substantive things to officially help students gather those skills. They tell them that they'll need them, but then they go on to their next technical course or they go on to their next project. And it's really more of a self-motivated or viral kind of teaching of each other than it is, explicit programs, which surprises me. It feels like somebody should have come up with stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, it's probably sprinkling in some of those classes that, from the management consulting firms that they have kind of training up their consultants. Many of them have an approach and a methodology for that, but it hasn't really been extended over into the technical roles yet.
Francis Boykin, Director of Advanced Analytics, AT&T. What advice would you give to students that they ought to be thinking about? Let's say they're either preparing for their very first job interviews, graduating, or maybe they're a very recent grad who's still trying to find their niche.
So the main thing is look for opportunities that give you the opportunity to work on a variety of projects from across the organization. So avoid the niches. Avoid the the areas where you're going to be so focused on one thing. Because what we're seeing, if you've heard anything in the news recently, what we're seeing is that there is, to stay relevant, it is important to be versatile, to be able to not just work on one kind of project or one type of tool, but to be able to take and shift as necessary across projects, across tools, across teams. So my advice is to be versatile. My father used to call it being qualified. And when I was young, I never understood what that meant. It took me being, an adult with my own children to figure out what he meant. And that's just, know what's coming, keep your eye on what's coming on the horizon. And as you're looking out, as you're working, look out as well for those additional opportunities. If I hadn't been doing that, I would, not that I wouldn't like still doing the IT work that I was doing when I first started my career, but that's what I would still be doing if I hadn't kept a weather eye on what the other opportunities were. So when you go and you look for these opportunities, make sure that there's extra opportunities to learn more and do more than just what you were being hired to do.
That's really good advice. And the interesting part about that is, and it's the truth. I look back at the degree I got many years ago, and a lot of what I learned would still be relevant. But if all I knew was what I learned in that degree, I would have gotten not very far, not very fast, because so many things changed. And so I think it is that imperative. Don't assume you have your degree and you're done. In fact, probably you've probably hardly even begun, whether you realize it or not. I know that's what I talk to students here about a lot is, there's so much you're not learning in school that you're going to need to know in the business world. But, some of it, there's no way around just jumping in and being thrown in the fire and figure it out.
Yes, absolutely. And we're all data people. And as data people, we love to talk about data. So get into those organizations, get into those teams and meetups and all of the chat people. Even within my organization, we have a bi-weekly meeting where we just meet to talk cool stuff that has nothing to do with what we do every single day. Just what's going on. What have you seen out on TikTok? What have you seen out there that's cool that we could be working on? And those are the fun things. So have fun, work hard, but have fun too.
Amit Shetty, Chief Data Officer, Pilot Flying J. Students coming out of our programs who might be interviewing with you, in the coming months, you're going to want to know that they have the technical ability to execute the kind of work that you need. But there's a lot more that you're also looking for on top of that, it sounds.
Yeah, I think for every student that, watches this, I would say very simply, your technology skill or your technical skills, not your technology skills, your technical skills are cost of entry, right? What's going to differentiate you is your EQ, where you have that EQ and IQ balance and where you bring those soft skills to bear. And are you somebody who's coachable? Can you be developed into the, higher and higher roles within the organization? Everybody's looking for individuals that bring that balance. And that balance is what's so important because at the end of the day, those are the leaders that can really take your company to the next level.
Rachel Stuve, Senior Director of Data Science and AI, Anthem. As you think specifically about some of the students that are young and getting maybe their first job, whether with a bachelor's, master's, PhD, what's a piece of advice you'd have to them as to what they ought to be thinking about as they're looking for their first job in data science and as they attempt to build a career?
Yeah. I think that the thing to remember, kind of my advice, is that think about the different experiences or skills that people have had along the way and how that would apply. So for example, I've had people that don't have a lot of experience in, say, technical analytics, but they've had a lot of experience in leading projects at school or being organized or bringing a team together or in their job, if it's kind of a part-time job, of can you problem solve? Is there customer service? Do you have listening skills? Can you apply that cross-functionally? So do you have technical skills? Do you have people skills? Writing skills are really important, especially with the kind of remote environment that we're in now. Being able to communicate via email or text or chat or phone outside of that kind of in-person interaction is really critical. So I think my biggest advice really for people that are trying to enter the field is take a look at the whole gamut of your experience and look at the actual skills that could be applied to a job, and not just focus on a technical certification or a technical project, but really all of the different experiences that somebody's had that would be valuable to an employer.
Kathleen Maley, Vice President of Analytics, Experian. If you were to talk to somebody who's going to be graduating, whether it be this December or next May, what would be a piece of advice you'd give them to help them get started in their career in the world of analytics and data science today?
I've got a few. Number one, if you're graduating from a business analytics program, think very carefully about how much of that program was programming, algorithmic computer science, and how much of it were the fundamentals of statistics. I see analytics as more of the statistics and the study of data, actually making sense of data, that really hard thinking. 80% of what we do in most industries who are leveraging applied analytics, established industries, I would say, established companies, I would say, is investigative analytics. And that means pulling data, summarizing that data for myself, studying that data to find an answer to a specific question. I never encountered that type of homework question in graduate school. So that's an area, really understand that it's about studying the data and making sense of it and drawing conclusions and making recommendations. It isn't just providing all of the data and interesting things you found. And to do that, having a baseline understanding of how really just understanding data is very, very important. So a lot of these business analytics programs now focus on the computer science and the algorithms. Don't forget the statistics. The statistics are very, very important. Soft skills are everything. And not everybody is great at soft skills. Not everybody wants to be the lead and engage with the partner and meet the partner where they are. They don't have to understand what I do. It is not my job to educate them on what I do. My job is to understand enough of what they do so that I can apply these very, very powerful tools that I understand. They're not allowed to touch my tools. I'm not trying to teach anybody how to do machine learning. That is not my job. My job is to answer a question, make a recommendation, build a solution, and help the company make more money. That's my job. And so understanding that that's my job is very, very important. And I think maybe the third piece of advice is to remember that analytics, as it's often applied, not always, but again, in my experience and what I've seen in established companies who are using analytics to make their own decisions more intelligently, it's still a fairly new practice. And we haven't worked out all the bugs. Some of us have put a lot of effort into getting better, but it's very, very likely that you will land in a place that's been doing it a certain way for a long time, and that may or may not match much of what you're hearing me talk about today. It's going to take some patience. It's going to take some motivation and some ownership of the problem, a grassroots effort to evolve your organization if you're walking into an organization that still believes your job is to just get the data.
Erica McBride, Group Vice President of Data and Analytics, Tenerity. What would be one or two pieces of advice you'd give to students if they're thinking about how to best start their career, particularly in an analytics or data science related field?
I would say the main thing is to not be afraid to try new things. So as we talked about, I moved from a service organization. I was there for 17 years. And I went to chemical manufacturing. Now I'm at kind of a digital startup. You can always take something from all of these prior experiences and build upon it for your next role. So if there's 10 line items on a job description and you're only comfortable with like 6 of them, just, have confidence in your abilities that you'll figure out the other 4. So don't be afraid to take those chances.